is the second studio album by Australian rock band King Stingray. It was released on November 8th, 2024. The band has described the album as a joyous celebration of life and the planet. King Stingray performs songs in both English and in Yulnu, a Northern Australian indigenous language. So, Eric, your thoughts on this album?
It's funny because when I started listening to this album, I just got onto this TV show called Mr. In Between, and it takes place in Australia. So I feel like I've just embraced myself in Australian culture. So I'm going around using slang, and my wife's looking at me like I'm an idiot. But hey, um, I actually quite dug this album. I thought it was really cool. I didn't think it was anything like this isn't mind blowing stuff.
Right.
But I thought it was really cool mixing in that indigenous element from the Aussies into this album, and it has that like Men at Work mixed with a bit of like indie Canadian bands from like
Oh, yeah.
like the New Pornographers or the Beaches. Like it has that just
Right.
blend of just indie surf rock, which is cool. I have to say, I thought it was awesome how they incorporated the didgeridoo.
Oh
That
yeah,
was sick.
the didgeridoo on this album is so good, and it's not like it doesn't sound like a gimmick, right? There's so many bands
No.
that like Scottish bands when they use bagpipes all the time. It's just like this is too much. This is just your this is your shtick. But the didgeridoo on this album actually added to the songs when it was used.
Yeah, it really like lifted the song,
Yeah.
um, which was awesome. I mean, the song has kind of, or sorry, the album has the same feel throughout the whole thing. And I would say lyric wise, there's nothing too crazy. Obviously, I don't know what they're saying in their indigenous language,
Mm.
so I can't speak on behalf of that. But I liked how Australian it was, but it wasn't to the point where it was cheesy.
Yes.
Because as much as I love that song, um, that Men at Work song, the or Land Down Under,
Land Down Under. Yeah.
yeah, Land Down Under. Um, as much as I love that song, and every time it comes on, I get super hyped. It is a cheesy song. It
Yes.
is a completely cheesy song. I saw a man in Brussels. He handed me a Vegemite sandwich. Right, like very Australian. But this was Australian, but it was very true to its roots, which I thought was
Mm.
really cool about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the album itself, it felt very like positive, uplifting. Like it sort of had that vibe to it. And when I was listening to this album, I was like, I criticized Dua Lipa's album, that Optimism record, for like the goal
Mhm.
of that record was to be a positive record. And I was like, it's stupid. This is like meaningless. And then now I'm listening to this, I'm like, hey, you can actually make a happy album sound pretty good.
Yeah. So now that you bring that up, that's a good point because I would actually rate this higher than the Dua Lipa album.
Oh, of course. I think the Dua Lipa album, even though the goal was to be like a positive album and whatnot, it ended up falling flat because the songwriting wasn't there.
Mhm.
This album, I wouldn't say they're like the best songwriters in the world. I didn't find any of the
Mhm.
songs particularly mind blowing, but they had certain elements that I was like, oh, that's actually new. Like the didgeridoo was like,
Mhm.
that's pretty cool. Um, but like the actual structure of the songs, it was still like a verse chorus type of thing. Um, it wasn't anything new from that respect, but it was still like pretty good. Like even like Cat
Mhm.
Five, the last song, I was like, oh, that's a pretty
Yeah.
interesting concept for a song.
And I love just the jamminess of them. They just like
Yeah,
jammed, and
yeah.
it was awesome. It was awesome. Like I love these kind of bands, so I was like, I did not know what to expect because when I look at it in Apple Music, I'm like, okay, these guys are Australian. Second album, it's surf, and I'm like, okay, so automatically I think of Beach Boys, right?
Mm, Right.
And then you go in there and it didn't sound like the Beach Boys at all, which was cool. So it still had that surfy element to it, but it was
Yeah.
not like that typical American, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it still had a laid backness to it, an indie feel to it. It
Mhm.
was pretty cool. Like I liked the record. It sounded good. I think a lot of the songs did blend together somewhat. Like if you listen to this
They
from
did.
front to back, I think they're all sort of the same tempo, sort of same like uplifting
Mhm.
sort of sound to them. So it's like, there should have been a bit more variation. But at the end of the day, I enjoyed listening to it, and there were definitely elements, especially the Aboriginal indigenous language. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool that you incorporated that into here.
Now, I have a question for you. Do you
Mm.
think that this band would be better live?
Oh yeah. This band is definitely a band you see live. I think the energy off the stage is really important.
If I'm going to Australia, I'm going to seek these guys out and go watch a show because the hype that these guys give off from the album is pretty high.
Yeah,
So I can just imagine what they're going to be live.
yeah. I'm interested to see how they pull off the didgeridoo live, because
Mhm.
that instrument's ginormous. So like I don't
How do you
know.
mic that up?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Is it just a kick drum mic just at the bottom?
Maybe.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I think it sounded good, recorded well. They all play their instruments really well. I just think maybe this just comes with time. Like if the songwriting just became a bit more advanced, is a sort of basic at this point,
Mhm.
which is not too bad. Like this style of music doesn't need to be overly complicated, but you know,
Mhm.
it's
Absolutely.
yeah, all the songs sort of blend together, even though it's good.
Mhm.
Um, Here, Chess, welcome in. Thanks for tuning in. We're just talking about some music here. Eric, final thoughts and ratings for King Stingray's album For the Dreams.
I mean, I'm excited to go back and listen to their first album and see what that's all about. I'm excited to go look at live content from these guys, and I would actually put these guys on my radar just to see where these guys end up, what they're coming out with, because I really enjoyed listening to this. But like you said, there's nothing special. It's not you're not getting the best songwriting, but the jam is just so awesome, and
Mm-hmm.
my heart wants to give it an 8, but I think it's a 7 in my
Ooh,
books.
7.
A 7 out of
Nice.
10. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of near where you're at. I'm giving a 7.5 because I think it's worth a listen. Especially
Mhm.
because like there's a lot of like real authentic like Australianness to it. And it's not
Mhm.
just played for the gimmicks or sort of like the tag. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5 because I really enjoyed the album. They definitely have a signature sound to them, with the didgeridoo and all that. But uh, if the song, there just needs to be a higher level of songwriting at this point because the band definitely can play, and they
Mhm.
definitely have the energy. So I really enjoyed listening to this one. Cool. So 7.5 for me, 7 for you, Eric. I think that's it for this one. So for those of you following along with us every single week, the album that we're going to be discussing is the brand new Linkin Park album From Zero. I'm pretty excited to talk about this because I have very strong opinions. Actually, funny thing is, I was listening to Hybrid Theory this week before
Mhm.
listening to this album, and I was just like, I definitely have strong opinions about this brand new album.
It's gonna be a ride, my friend.
Anyways, tune in next week for our views on From Zero by Linkin Park. It's a lot of controversy on this one, so we'll see.
A lot.
Yep.